What was the catalyst for you deciding to retire? Because you retired in like prime age. Like you were like, how old were you when you first decided?
I guess when I first said it after the Hooker fight, I was, I guess, 37.
Yeah, so it's like at the end.
But I started late too. I didn't turn professional until I was 28, I think.
Wow. When was your first amateur fight?
I think I was like 26.
Really?
Yeah.
So when did you start training?
Well, so I did Taekwondo since I was a little kid. Started at 12 years old doing that and competed Junior Olympics, you know, wearing the hogus and all that kind of stuff. Did all the traditional Taekwondo tournaments. And I used to get kicked out of some of these things because I'd throw punches or I'd throw too hard. Like I remember one time my mom ended up getting into this huge argument with this guy because I was hitting her son too hard in a martial arts competition.
Oh, God.
But
Parents.
oh, dude. And my mom is like the sweetest woman in the world, but as soon as somebody talks ill of me or steps to me, my mom's ready to throw down. She's the one who taught me how to fight, man.
Wow.
Yeah, I got stories about mom, but I did that all the way through until I was in college.
And you were...
And then I went to acting school.
Yeah, you were a theater major.
I went to school for theater, yeah. And I kind of stopped training hardcore, but still taught karate at the school that I got my black belt at when I was a kid while going to school in Philly for acting. I was still teaching the little kids. Oh. And then I was working professionally in like the Philadelphia theater scene, which isn't anything major, but there's some good professional theater companies there. I was doing that for a little while. And in the summers, the theaters, they're dark. There's not much going on. And a buddy of mine that I used to train with took an amateur fight. And I used to kind of get the better of him. And he went and did well on this amateur fight down in Atlantic City. New Breed Fighting is what it was called. And I was like, I could do that. So I waited a whole year, did the next summer, signed up for one of those fights. And dude, that was it. That walkout, the crowd, like all your friends and family being there, you're walking out to fight somebody else. I remember having migraines. I remember like vomiting afterwards. I was so anxious, so nervous, and I won. And I remember telling all my acting friends at the time we were drinking in like the back of somebody's like South Philly row home, and they're like, "That was crazy, man. Are you done?" And I was like, "Fuck no." I was like, "I have to do that again, and I have to do it better than I did that time." And so a year later, I signed up for another one. Following summer, New Breed, but I knew what to do now. So I trained properly. I went to a Muay Thai school to train for it. I did jiu-jitsu for it. And I beat the crap out of this kid in my second fight. Leg kicked the dog shit out of him. And it was a decision, but I was like, all right, that was cleaner. Then I did another one. And now I thought I was too cool for school. And I got choked out in my third amateur fight. Got triangle choked by this kid, Max Bohannon, who was like a prodigy from, he was from Ricardo Almeida's school and trained with him. And he choked the shit out of me. And then I was like, okay, now I got to start doing real grappling and real jiu-jitsu. And I started training with jiu-jitsu schools and stuff like that. And I did one more amateur fight, a spinning back kick to the liver. I knocked this kid out in my fourth amateur fight. And then I went pro because the rules in PA, shin guards, big, huge, puffy gloves, 2-minute rounds. What the hell are you supposed to do as a striker with 2 minutes? You're a wrestler. You get one takedown, you won the round. That's it. So when I turned pro, I was like, okay, I'll do one pro fight just to say I was a pro athlete, you know, just to say that I did it. Honest to God, that's why I did it. I was like, I'm going to go back to acting. And I was still doing professional shows in between getting ready for fights. Won the fight, flying knee, TKO the dude. They took him out on a stretcher. It was for CFFC. They had to stop the show because they only had one ambulance.
Oh, wow.
So the ambulance had to take the guy, and shout out to him, Toomey Goodrum. You're still the man. But they took him out, and they had to wait for the ambulance to come back. So I'd stopped the show in my first
wow,
my first pro fight.
One ambulance?
And it took him out on they took him out on a stretcher.
No, but I mean one ambulance.
One ambulance, yeah, and they never did that again.
Yeah,
they never did that again. If anything, I show them you need to have 2 ambulances at these things.
So you get some fights in some small organizations.
Yeah,
and then how old?
Mainly Cage Fury, who thank God that's kind of who I stumbled upon. So I was already kind of with one of the better regional promotions to begin with. I lucked out with that. I fought in Pittsburgh, I think once or twice, and then and I fought for CFFC.
And how many fights did you have before you got into the UFC?
I was 8-0. I was 8-0 when I got signed. I think I had like 6 knockouts, a bunch in the first round, and that's when I started putting the acting like way on the back burner. I was like, wow, I might actually be able to get into the UFC. It was that was never. I mean, never the goal was to get in the UFC from the beginning. But then once I started winning, I always trained my ass off, you know, just like I am with triathlon or with whether it be acting, whether it be fighting, commentary. Like I'm trying to put myself into it. And the wins started coming. And then I remember I knocked out this kid in Atlantic City in my last fight with CFFC, a spinning hook kick to the this is it. Bam.
Oh.
And look, I got more damage from the ref throwing me into the cage than I did in that whole fight.
What did you weigh here?
That's 155. I was just smaller. You know, years,
Shredded.
dude, think about like, you know how it is.
Yeah.
The years and years of you doing strength and conditioning and you building up those muscles and your bones get denser and stuff like that. So, I mean, by the time I got to the UFC, plus the lightweights were so big, I remember thinking like, I have to be bigger than these guys. And I had this complex that I had to weigh so much. So I'd go and get so fat in between fights. And that's one regret I have. Looking back, I would have stayed leaner and in better shape all year round and not done the drastic weight cuts that I did.
Is that like the thing that you worry the most about? We were talking about that earlier.
Well, I know for sure that I've hurt my kidneys to the point where even after fights, like I've had rhabdo after the Dan Hooker fight. I was like peeing Coca-Cola.
Ugh.
And they made me stay in the hospital for like an extra day or two to monitor my kidneys. I almost had compartment syndrome from that fight. They were going to have to slice my calf open. I've obviously lost a piece of my lung in the James Vick fight.
How'd that happen?
At the end of the fight, he knees me, and it pushed in my rib cage. A lot of people thought my rib cage broke. It didn't. Nothing broke, but I had they call it like a bleb on your lung that you would only know about if somebody went in there or something happened to it. So it's like a bubble that naturally forms on your lungs, and it's okay unless something hits it. Well, that knee just so happened to hit right on that spot, and it just so happened that I had this thing on my lung, and it burst.
Whoa.
So it collapsed my lung.